Here are all the places the Pope visited when he was alive. Of course, besides Italy, he was probably going to Italy every single day just because he lived in the smallest country in the world. If he exited out of his walls, he was in Italy. Imagine going to a different country outside of the one you live in literally every single day. That's what it would be like. This is really interesting considering that historically, popes didn't travel all that much. They usually kind of just stayed in Italy. But to be fair, like 1500 years ago, there weren't that many different modes of travel. The first pope was from over 2000 years ago, so it's kind of hard to leave the Italian Peninsula or Europe in the year like 30 AD. Nowadays, it can be done. Something to keep in mind too with Pope Francis is he visited a lot of countries for the first time. There were places, especially out here to the east, that no pope had ever gone before. He went to a total of 7 new countries, however, not all are built the same. For example, North Macedonia is a relatively new country, only officially becoming independent back in 1991. But funny enough, there was historically a Macedonia like thousands of years ago, and the Pope could have technically gone there. I mean, does it count if he went to any of these countries that were formerly held by the Macedonian Empire? I don't think so. An even crazier one though, he went to Iraq in 2021. Iraq, which for over 1,000 years has been Muslim lands. There's also Bahrain in 2022, as well as the UAE in 2019. South Sudan has a very similar story to North Macedonia. South Sudan only became a country in 2011, but over 60% of the people that live here are in fact Christian. Then there's also Myanmar. A little bit surprised that the Pope has never been to Myanmar before, but at the same time, not really. I don't know why he would go to Myanmar. Or a lot of Southeastern Asian countries, in fact, I mean, they just don't have huge Catholic populations. Maybe is it Vietnam that's pretty Catholic? Vietnam and Myanmar are pretty Catholic considering, well, the rest of the region. But of course, the Philippines blow them all out of the water. So I suppose that makes a little bit more sense than going to Mongolia in 2023. That's a good one. Maybe the Pope thought, I need to go to Mongolia just in case Mongolia one day comes back to me. Which is maybe why we should all one day visit Mongolia, just so they don't get the desire to, well, come visit me here in California, for instance. Pope Francis' visit to Mongolia was to visit the 1,500 Catholics that live in that country. About 42,000 people. That is very interesting. It's interesting considering the other countries that have a lot more Christians that he didn't visit. I mean, I understand he's a busy guy, and there's lots of reasons for visits. Something else to keep in mind is this is pastoral visits. This isn't necessarily saying where Francis went before he was Pope. But then again, before he was Pope, he's from Argentina. He didn't really leave Argentina too much. It's just funny because as Pope, he never revisited his home country. He didn't do a single visit back home to Buenos Aires. He was head of the Catholic Church for 12 years there, but he didn't do it. He did go to their neighboring country, Chile, though. Again, there are many reasons why I think a significant figure or leader and just anything in general visits other countries. You got to be kind of strategic with it. I'm sure there was a reason why he didn't want to go back to Buenos Aires in the last 12 years. He also didn't go to Uruguay either, though. He visited every other neighboring country, Chile, Bolivia, Paraguay, Brazil. I can understand why he didn't go to Venezuela. Venezuela's got some political issues right now. And then Suriname and Guyana, well, they're not super Catholic. Well, actually, what's funny is they're still more Catholic than Mongolia, though. There's actually a lot of Hindus that live in Guyana, believe it or not. Still a majority Christian, but 30% Hindus is the biggest population of Hinduism outside of India. Or I should say outside of South Asia, actually. Pope Francis did not visit Venezuela, but he did go to Cuba. Again, another country that is pretty internationally cut off. He went to Mexico, the US, and Canada. The only place in both the American continents that he went more than once. Remember, this is French Guyana. That doesn't count. That's part of French territory. That's crazy. I guess the Pope has, as of recently, acted as a neutral mediator between Cuba and the US. Obviously, since Cuba has been cut off from the US since the 1960s, that whole missile crisis. His favorite country, though, appears to be France with a total of 3 visits. I mean, outside of Italy, I'm sure it is France. That's got to be his favorite home. A lot of supporters and a lot of cool churches. I'm loving this list of most Catholic countries by percentage. Of course, the Vatican is at 100%. Everyone in the Vatican is Catholic. I think that's kind of a rule. Then it is East Timor, San Marino, Paraguay, Andorra, Croatia, Malta. A lot of very small places. Look at the Philippines go, though. They're the only country in the top 10. I think they might just be barely out of the top 10. With over 100 million people, 78% of the population, they are so Catholic. Yeah, they're actually in 11th place, but this is still incredible. France, relatively speaking, is kind of lower on the list. I mean, I know they have a lot more population to deal with, but they're kind of at 50% here and there. He went to Portugal twice, which we saw on the list. They are in the 10th most Catholic nation. Ireland, also very Catholic. Belgium, Luxembourg. He never visited Spain, though. No Argentina, no Spain. Some of the most Catholic countries on earth. It's not exactly the case, but you can kind of see the Protestant versus Catholic divide in Europe. Obviously, all those countries formerly a part of the Roman Empire, they are usually more Catholic. Germany, Switzerland, the Netherlands, Denmark, they're surrounded. He did, in fact, visit the Swiss, which, I mean, this is a country that borders Italy. I guess it shouldn't be too shocking. He didn't go to Austria, though. Also, no Croatia. Croatia was pretty high on the list. Obviously, the point here, though, is not that you need to be Catholic for him to visit. I'm sure it helps. It definitely helps. It is crazier to see some of the places he visited that don't have very many Catholics, though. Like he went to Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, Thailand. I mean, some of the biggest ones, Morocco, Egypt. Egypt has a lot of Christians, though, for, considering the rest of the region. Kind of surprised he only went to the Philippines once. I would be going back to the Philippines every single week. I'd be like, they love me over there. This is a good time. I get to chill on these islands. And actually, this is one of the candidates to be the next pope here. Literally, the betting odds got him as a favorite 3-1. After looking at the amount of Catholics that are living in the Philippines currently, I can see why. Technically, it is Brazil and Mexico that have larger numbers in terms of just pure Catholic population, but by percentage, the Philippines is very high. Remember, another reason a pope would visit a country is just to promote peace. That's a big deal. I mean, we kind of saw that with the Cuba thing. In a way, if he didn't visit, maybe he thinks you already are at a certain level of peace. Imagine if a pope goes to China one day. I feel like that will eventually happen. What's actually interesting is John Paul II, he ended up visiting way more places. All up in Africa, all in Europe, not in China though. However, after all, he was the longest reigning pope. He was literally the pope for 27 years. So, like, what else are you gonna do but travel? John Paul II is probably considered the most traveled pope ever. It's gonna be hard to beat these numbers too. Something to certainly keep in mind is obviously there are more countries in general around now than there were like 70 years ago. Lots of decolonization took place after World War II, so there are just a lot more places to technically visit. This comment about the places Pope Francis traveled to, the visit to Iraq is still one of the most bold moves ever. I was back in 2021, I remember seeing stuff about this, and if I was pope, I would also want to visit like the most like crazy places, like throw me in Antarctica. He visited Sweden and Estonia and not Spain or Argentina. What the heck? Yeah, don't be confused. He did not actually go to French Guyana 3 times. Like I said, though, I mean, I feel like the next guy gotta go here. Dang, he didn't get out much. 60 international travels in 12 years. I can't say I've traveled that much in the same amount of time. It's true. Also, I mean, you would think that he would just want to relax at home. This is also a very good comment. Why visit countries that already have Catholic tradition and good relations with the Holy See? The goal of the church is to be universal and for everyone, not just European sect. Now, as for the next pope, these are all the countries that have the most power. Unsurprisingly, the more Catholic population you have, the more votes you get. This makes me think of the old Holy Roman Empire, but just on like a world stage. And we got electors from all around now, all the different continents, as well as cardinals. So, of course, the nation of Italy has the most power in this upcoming vote. They have a total of 17 votes. Then it's the USA at 10. Of course, something I'm keeping in mind is like the relative population size of both places. But it's not just about that. It's also considering your Catholic population. But even that is not necessarily enough because, again, you would think the Philippines would be way higher on the voting power scale. They're okay, but they only get 3 votes. Brazil, which is technically the most Catholic nation on earth just in terms of sheer numbers, they're only getting 7 votes. Then France and Spain, they both get 5. Portugal, Poland, and Canada, they get 4. Oh, as well as India. Don't forget about India. Here's a crazy one, though. Mexico gets 2 votes. Switzerland gets 2 votes. They have, a good amount of Catholic population. Japan gets 2 votes, and then Cote d'Ivoire, a French colony, but it's the only place in Africa that gets 2 votes. In fact, the Cote d'Ivoire and Mexico have the same amount of votes. I've got a lot of questions. I need to dive way deeper into this because, again, I mean, Mexico's kind of up there with Brazil in terms of just sheer Catholic numbers. All the other pink countries, they just get 1 vote. There's 54 countries that are in the pink category. Oh, look at that. Mongolia is one of them. So is Myanmar too. Feels strange the US has so many when it's not a predominantly Catholic country. On a per capita basis, it's really not much. Canada having 4 is a much higher number per capita, for example. That's a good point. Sweden has a cardinal? Apparently, yes. Funny that Ireland isn't sending any. Yeah, there is an age limit to this. You can't be over 80. The number breakdown of all this stuff is so fascinating. Europe has 114 cardinals total, which is 45% of them, and then compare that to the percentage of global Catholic population in Europe. There's so many things that go into this, though. There's like a huge historical precedent, obviously. Look at Oceania get 4, a total of 1.6, but they're only, well, I guess that one's pretty close to their numbers. I wonder how difficult it would be to just completely reorganize this, go purely based off of like per capita, how much Catholic population you have in each continent, because obviously there's still some re-weighting that needs to go around. Now, historically speaking, Italy has a massive, home field advantage for where the Pope will have originally been born, with over 221 popes being from the Italian peninsula. Again, this actually shouldn't be shocking. Of course, most popes are coming from Italy. Pope Francis came from Argentina, like we talked about. 5 from Germany, though, 16 from France, only 2 from Spain. That has got to be the single most shocking one. Spain is extremely Catholic. You would think there'd be way more popes from Spain. I mean, there were 5 from Syria. Looks like there was 1 from Israel, 2 from Croatia, 5 from Greece. Again, these are just the places of origin, birth, and then they eventually grew up and became the pope. I feel like it's safe to say the next pope was probably not going to be from Europe. That's what all the pictures are saying anyways. There's lots of possibilities here, as you can clearly see. It's going to be real interesting coming up here. Remember, this has been a long line for like 2,000 years, so there's a lot of different birthplaces from all the popes. Vast majority, again, coming from the Italian peninsula, and you can see the year they were born as well. Wait, sorry, not the year they were born. The ranking of when they were. Wait, this says if known. That's crazy, because there's some popes we don't know where they were born from. I mean, I know the secession like dates back really far back, but that's kind of crazy. No one thought to write it down like 2,000 years ago. Like, hey, just so we know this pope was born in like, I don't know, some mountain outside of Switzerland. That's actually insane. Look at the second most popular category is unknown. If you're not coming from Italy, then we probably don't know, which is crazy. How did we not get that information down? How did we not ask the guy? I mean, I know he was busy. Some popes didn't reign for super long time. For example, this guy who was pope for 13 calendar days. Italy is cheating with the amount of popes they had. What the frick, man? Yeah, what the heck? So I'm trying to be good for this video. And big ol' thanks to my April patrons. I time traveled back in 2025 to stop Drew from taking over the world. We only have 2 years left. Drew's Argentinian Trust Fund, Rip Grandpa. Alexander the Terrible. Carmel S. Connor Pavlik. DOOCHBAGGINS. Fredrik Tibblin. KingBearHaze. KirinoIsBestGirl. The Go. Nolan. NordTyrol. And Tambre.